So what I'm doing today is walking you through my entire brand design process from start to finish to give you some insight into what I do and what's beneficial to my process, and show some things that you might be interested in adding to your process. So I want to try and hit on every single point of the project and just show the entirety from start to finish of what I do. So the first thing that's going to happen is a client is going to inquire on my website and fill out a form with some details about them and their business. And I'll review that and send them back an email if it looks like we're a good fit. And I'll include my packages and pricing details on there so they can review that. And then after that, if they're good to go with those details, we'll set up an onboarding meeting. And in that onboarding meeting, we'll just rehash some of the details, make sure we're on the same page, and I will get some more details about their business and their expectations for the project. And from there, I will send a proposal and contract. So once all of that is signed and taken care of, we will book their project, and typically it's a few months out, so we won't start on it right away. But once we get closer to the start date, the first thing we're gonna do is a brand strategy session. So in the brand strategy session, we'll go over a bunch of questions and discuss their competition, their brand personality, their audience profiles. Now after this, I'm gonna go in and form a brand strategy guide based off of all this information that we've gathered. I'll form a mission statement and values and kind of form the brand personality as well as the audience profiles. Now once I form the strategy guide, I am gonna start working on a mood board presentation. So with this, I'll go mostly on Pinterest and look for images and graphics and textures to form into mood boards. And these just lay out a general style and inspiration for us to look at moving forward so that we're on the same page with everything. A mood board is actually really important because if you don't have this inspiration set in place for you both to look at, you can be totally out of sync with your expectations, and once you deliver the final product, it can be a lot different than what the client was expecting if just your verbal communication through the brand strategy wasn't syncing up visually. So I provide 2 of these so that there are a couple different options to look at. So with this brand, which is Grit, I provided one direction that is a little more gritty and rough, which is this first mood board. And the second one is a little more feminine and delicate in a way. And originally this second mood board had a green color in the palette, but the owners decided that they wanted to go with a black and white color scheme, so that's what we ended up going with. So after this is complete, I will send the mood board presentation and the strategy guide to the client for them to review. And in the end, the client wanted to go with this second mood board, which had a little bit more of a flowing, feminine style. So after landing on that, I dived into actually designing the branding. So before I actually go into Illustrator and start designing, I like to do some sketching to get some ideas out. So here you can see one page of some sketches. So you can see it's just kind of a mess, and most of these ideas won't get used, but I like to just get everything out on paper. So once I have some ideas and I'm ready to start going in and designing, I'll make a blank document for a workspace. I look through some fonts, start, just designing, honestly. So currently I do 2 concepts for the client when I do a brand design. So with this first concept, I know I wanted to add some movement within the lettering, and I ended up slanting the I and the T so that it fits into the rest of the word a little better, and it just has movement to it. And then for the icon, I was messing around with it, and I ended up taking the G, and by connecting it with a line like this, it formed like a weight icon. So I really liked that, and I wanted to go with that. And then I form a brand pattern as well. So for this one, it ended up being pretty simple, kind of working off of this inspiration in the mood board with the flowing lines. So these pretty condensed flowing lines kind of mirror the look of the lettering, with it being kind of tall and condensed. And the curvature of the G looks very similar to the curvature of these lines. So that just worked well and worked as a pretty simple pattern to accompany all of this. Eventually, I also formed some brand icons. So with this next concept, I found this font that I really liked, and I started to work with that, and I tweaked the letters a little bit and rounded the corners off, brought this down a little bit, but I ended up leaving it pretty simple for the main logo, just because the type was really strong, and I felt like it had a great look to it by itself, so keeping it super clean like that. Then I brought some more personality in with the secondary logo, which took the G and created like lots of movement through several flowing lines. So I worked off of that and ended up creating this pattern, which took a while to create, but it does look very similar to the one on the mood board, except it takes a 3-line format and works really well with the secondary logo there. I originally tried a pattern like this, but I just didn't like it as much. I felt like there was a better option. So once I finalized all of these, I put them into my concept presentation. And this presentation I actually have available on my website if you want access to a presentation to use in the long run that just works and you don't have to mess with creating your own. You can go check that out. So I laid out everything in here, and then I also went through and created mock-ups for this. After this, I completed it and sent this to the client. It took about 2 weeks to get these concepts done. And so with my process, I do have revision rounds included. So they did want some tweaks. They liked the primary logo of the first concept, but they really liked the 3-line logo mark of the second concept, as well as the pattern of the second concept. So we basically took everything from the second concept and paired it with the primary logo of the first concept, which doesn't always work. They might not always be able to like mix and match kind of like that. But this one, they worked pretty well just because of how simple it was. We could interchange them. And all I had to do was kind of redo this logo mark to actually look like the G of this logo. And then we also added more icons for the brand icons, some that were more relevant, such as a male version of the female icons. And then after this round, they were good to go. So we wrapped it up at that point. They paid the final invoice, and I went ahead and started packaging up their files and putting together a brand guidelines document. And once again, this is on my website if you're interested. So this includes all the elements of their branding and how to use it correctly and what not to do with it. And just has all of the elements together so that you can easily reference what all the different aspects are of the branding. And then after that, I pretty much packaged everything up, exported all the files for the logo, and the icons and the patterns and everything, and sent that over to them. And only sending it over after the final invoice is paid, which is an important step to implement. And once that was sent over, we were pretty much done with the project. As far as meetings that we only had that one brand strategy meeting. It kind of varies depending on the project, how many meetings that we do have. Sometimes we will have a meeting to go over the initial concepts so that I can elaborate if necessary on those. But with this branding, we only had one meeting because that's all it was necessary. So that covers the entirety of my process. So if you have any questions on any aspects of this, you can leave them below. Or if you want me to cover anything in more detail in a future video, let me know. But that's all I have to cover today, so I will talk to you guys next time.